It's the best and worst of the USFL and XFL 2023 on episode 73 of the USFL Podcast.
1, 2, 3.
Welcome back, everybody, to another amazing edition of the USFL Podcast. I'm the ref representing Pro Football Newsroom, the leaders in spring football news. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, do we got a big one. But before we jump in to the season finale of the USFL Podcast, hey, look over to the right. We got our man, big man, Zach Kyleman. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm back. I'm glad to be in again before the end of the year. I was so sad to miss the Christmas show, but I'm glad we get to knock off one more before the season ends and before we get into some more official madness on the other side of the month, if you catch my drift, everybody. But glad to be on episode 73, end of another season, beginning of season 3 on the other side. 3 years of USFL Podcast, or whatever it's going to be named, will start this January.
Yeah, little did we know this is the season finale. It might be the pseudo series finale, but it's still going to be season 3 either way you look at it. I don't care. These episodes ain't starting back at 1. Get over it, baby.
You kidding me?
But, I mean, this is the show we've been leading up to. I mean, this is really our, 2-3 year anniversary right here. This is what we started things off at when we first kicked off the show. This is the best of is kind of what our test show to see if Zachy Boy and I wanted to do the USFL Podcast. And here we are 2 years later, going into a third year. Man, oh man, oh man, it's been fun. Look at all the events we've had along the way too. When we first started this, who would have known that we would have, I mean, we had multiple live events last year. We had Spring Stock, Motor City Meetup, Summer Stock, 2 Spring Stocks, 2 Summer Stocks, heading into a third. Zachy Boy, it's been fun.
Well, I got the OG shirt on for today. I mean, I had to bring it on. I know my name's blocking the April portion, but it's been a ride. You know, this is also the other portion that kicked things off. Spring Stock 1, April 16th, 2022, got things rolling. And we're going to have part of that as part of our episode today. As you know, we had those votes that were coming up that were going to be done before the Christmas live stream. And we'll get to talk about all that stuff today and then basically celebrate all things from this past year, because this is it. This is the final bit from us, and then we're into next year, 2024 and beyond. And who knows what else is on the other side, football-wise too, not just our league. I got way more than just this.
I mean, the Lions taking the division.
Hey, look, playoff-wise, I'm on your side. That's what I'm going with. I got my one win for the year off, you guys. Now I get to watch you go to the playoffs. That's all I wanted.
Naturally, over the Christmas holiday, there was plenty of people that going out to dinner and things like that. Everyone kept telling me the Lions are good. The Lions are good. The Lions are good. The Lions are good. That's all I heard, and I had to temper the expectations. I said the Lions are better. You're right. If they win a playoff game, the Lions are good. They have to win the playoff game. My wife, me, Zach, I refuse to buy any Lions merchandise until they win that playoff game. My wife, she was so loving, and she got me some Lions merch. I was a little disappointed. Not gear, at least. She knew better. She knew I wouldn't even put the jersey on until they win the playoff game. But I got like a 3D wall print of Ford Field. And then I got a Lions flag for out front. So at least the neighborhood, the Texans know who the real team is on the block now, the Detroit Lions. Now we'll have to see. Will they get that playoff win?
Dude, you're storing the roar at your house. That is that's bringing it hardcore. I'm glad to hear that. You know, I will say, the roar has been alive. Now you're going to hear it more in your area, neck of the woods this week. play in Dallas. So if you're going to be trying to temper the expectations, they're only going to be coming a little more so in your neck of the woods. Not per se where you're nearby, but Dallas, it's Texas. You talk about the Cowboys out there. It doesn't matter what team's nearby or whatever.
Oh yeah,
It's
no,
the
most
Cowboys
people are
country.
Cowboys fans out here, even though we're near to Houston. People love the Cowboys. They're America's team. I only say that because people are going to get mad. But you know what? No more NFL. We got USFL. We got XFL. You know what? Before we get into that, limited time only at USFL Podcast. Come follow us. Now over 3,000 followers on X. Go get in where you fit in before the handle changes. What will it be? Oh, we'll hopefully find out soon. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Hey, if you're over on YouTube, you know what to do. Click the red bell. Click the bell. It builds morale. Get signed up. It lets you know when we're live, when new episodes drop, just like this one. Hey, Breaking Tea, you want some USFL merch? Get well, it's hot. BreakingTea.com/USFL Newsroom, or just use the code USFL Newsroom for 10% off all your gear. And hey, you know what? Why don't you drop a review on all the audio platforms? Even if you're not listening on audio, go find one, drop a review, let us know how you're doing. So Zach, let's run through the categories here, and I want to quickly remind these were all voted by you, the fans. Over 1,000 entries this year. Again, I think the third year in a row, 1,000 entries, over 1,000 entries. But here's what we asked you: what was your favorite USFL team? Now, naturally, with the big merger, we also wanted to know what your favorite XFL team is, and you'll see. That's a theme that kind of carries through this year. We have the USFL Coach of the Year, the XFL Coach of the Year, the best moments all up in 2023, and naturally, the worst moments all up in 2023. You know, we had to ask about the community legend, the biggest moments of 2023. Favorite fan engagement event, and I feel like there's one more that I probably didn't include. We asked you what you wanted to see out of this merger, so I will collect those in the background as we look through the rest of the list. So hey, you know what? Let's start out right at the top. Favorite USFL team. I don't think I need to list them, but I'll list them. Maybe there's some XFL fans joining for the first time. Welcome aboard. We love you. Let's run through the USFL teams. We have the Birmingham Stallions, Houston Gamblers, all in, baby, all in. Just in case you didn't know, 12-0 in 2023, undefeated at minimum, all in. Sign us up. We got the Memphis Showboats, the Michigan Panthers, let's hunt, New Jersey Generals, the New Orleans Breakers, Philadelphia Stars, and the Steelers. Now, Zach, I don't think I have to ask, but I'm going to ask, what was your favorite team in 2023?
It's one that's hunting over in Detroit, man. It's the Michigan Panthers, the 1983 champs, the team that finished runner-up in the North Division, sadly. But, yeah, they're my guys, man. Roller coaster year, but I'm going to ride or die with them in this merger and wherever they go. You know, I got a 1983 championship tee from Grandma Kay for Christmas, man. I got to ride with them.
Which that shirt, I can't remember if I bought that shirt or not in Detroit, but if I didn't, I'm going to be upset at myself for not doing it, because that is probably one of the coolest pieces of USFL merch that's out right now. I love the old legacy tie-in. I'm going to say there's really no surprise to this one here on who the favorite USFL team. It seems like since the beginning, since the league kicked off, since the league hosts all of its games in Birmingham, the Birmingham Stallions have been a league favorite, not to mention back-to-back champions. And with a potential new league name coming, they may have swept the new USFL's championship list. So congratulations, 2023 fan favorite USFL team of the year, Birmingham flippin' Stallions. I can't say I'm surprised. Like I said, Zach, I don't know. We did spring stock in Birmingham 2 years in a row. There's a reason. The fans are amazing out there. The food is amazing out there.
Oh
The
my gosh.
atmosphere is fun. The local news is fun.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Good times in the local news.
We'll have to see. Spring Stock 3, will it be back to back to back to Birmingham? Only time will tell. So, Zach, how you want to run through the favorite XFL teams? I know we are the USFL podcast, so on the inverse, run through the teams. Maybe there's a few that didn't watch the XFL last year and don't know who the teams are.
Well, let's take a spin down the lane of the XFL teams list for favorite XFL team entries, and kicking things off at the top with the 2023 champions and the Arlington Renegades. You also have the DC Defenders on this list, the Lemon folks, the guys that are making it rowdy over at Audi Field. I need to make that as a rhyme, and that's actually a good rhyme. I'm going to keep that for a trademark. Houston Roughnecks as well, H-Town. We also got the Orlando Guardians, the San Antonio Brahmas, Rocks team of the people, Seattle Sea Dragons as well, the St. Louis Battlehawks, or some people call them Battle Wings. Those people will learn their lesson next year. That's my XFL team if I have to pick one, of course. And the Vegas Vipers. And this wasn't even close. There was some minor competition in the USFL bracket, by the way, and I do want to reemphasize that. The XFL one, it's all Battlehawks, people. And that is personified by the social following, I think the regular media exposure. I see NFL accounts, by the way, that make videos where they'll bring up the XFL as kind of a joke. The Battlehawks always get used, and it's because it's the most common and favorite brand out there, and so they won in a landslide. There's barely anyone that's close or got half the votes that the Battlehawks did. You can go to the USFL bracket, and the Breakers actually had a surprising poll. Maybe not
Breakers and Panthers.
The Panthers were right. Panthers were third in voting, which shocked me. New Orleans, wherever this merger goes, New Orleans, I'm telling you, man, that needs to be on the map. We've been talking about this for 2 years, and other people have said it louder than even us that are in that area. So, for another day. But Battlehawks, it's a Battlehawks nation.
Right.
It's simply the fact. You can see why the most commonly discussed, fantasized matchup for next year is Birmingham versus St. Louis, because those fan bases are that gigantic now.
Oh, yeah.
And both of them have been gaining steam, even more so in the offseason. I'll tell you what, I've seen more Stallions accounts this offseason than I have in the last offseason or last 2 years. You're seeing casual people that are just picking the Stallions because they like the horse brand. And I'm guaranteeing part of it is from those game day appearances of that flag for whoever's throwing that around.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%.
It's getting around, man. Natural exposure.
Now,
But, yeah.
So on the inverse, there's one thing I do want to point out in this list too. So the Battlehawks, man, they sweep the board. The Defenders, they're in second, but they're maybe about a third of what the Battlehawks got brought in. But there's two teams here that I would say performed not that great. Not that great.
Just a tad below expectations.
Now, again, am I surprised by either of these? No, not really. So we have the Orlando Guardians, the Vegas Vipers, both rumored not to be returning in 2024. I'd say, I don't know, seems like a pretty solid bet, at least on the Vegas side. Have to see on the Orlando side, but nothing seems to be pointing to a return. But hey, we don't have news yet, and nothing's official until it's revealed by the leagues. I mean, that's the one thing I've been trying to point out with this merger. Everybody's fixated and focused on 8 teams. We might get a pleasant surprise. Maybe we'll get 10. Maybe there will be a hub situation in the mix. There's nothing that seems to be pointing to that now, but again, there's nothing official. So, but when I look at this list and I see the Guardians and the Vipers so low on the list, I would also assume that both the USFL and the XFL have done their own types of polling or market research and probably are seeing similar things. And when it comes to having to make the tough decision of what teams to condense, you know what? It's things like that come into play.
Yeah, I mean, I could open the can of worms on the Houston discussion. I don't want to do that because that discussion has gotten kind of crazy, and it's one of those where I point and I go, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to wait till January and let the league pick it, because putting my 2 cents in will just make somebody want to say something a little out of I would say not out of context, a little off the cuff and in a wrong way, if you will. So,
do you want to know my take? Yeah. I think they should just keep both teams.
I don't have as much of a take. I will. Pick one is my take anymore.
Here's what I think they should do. I think this is how you reimagine the game of football. You take both the Houston Gamblers and the Houston Roughnecks. This is where it gets fun. Right. You put them both on the field on the same time.
Oh, I like this.
Against the other team. So it's 2 against 1. So you get 2 quarterbacks. You get a Roughnecks quarterback, a Gamblers quarterback. You 2 of every player. Kicker, which one's going to kick it? I don't know. Who's going to get the ball? Who's going to actually snap it? Like, think of that. Two guys with the ball at the center, and you have to figure out which one's going to snap it. And like, are they going to snap it to their quarterback? Are they going to do it diagonally to the? I'm telling you, I figured it out. Everybody, how do we get spring football to work?
This is
2 against 1.
This is the extreme dispersal draft solution.
Yeah, just give us the whole draft.
This is how we do it for every team.
No, just the Gamblers and the Roughnecks, because it doesn't matter. Like 12-0. I love that though. Anyway, Coach of the Year, Zach. You want to run through the USFL options here?
I'll run through these as well. USFL Coach of the Year. We had some really great stories in the USFL last season, but there can only be one that gets to stick with a vote, and away we go. So, start off, Bart Andrews from the Philadelphia Stars. We also got Curtis Johnson, who had, I thought, a solid first season in Houston, all in for him. And, depending on how the merger goes, again, still got to talk about who's there, but at least that roster and coaches seem to be safe for later. Anyway, we also got John DiFilippo. Still waiting on something with him from what it sounds like. We never know. But also great first season out of him for getting to the South Division semifinals as well. Mike Nolan for the Panthers. Let's hunt, baby. Got to the North Division semifinals. Helped revitalize that brand after his first season with, of course, Jeff Fisher. Mike Riley for the New Jersey Generals. I have an axe to grind for last year, but that's okay. He's still a great guy and is one of the beloved coaches in either one of these leagues for all context. The Ray Horton saga with, of course, Jaron Horton, the father-son duo over there in Pittsburgh. Great season, finishing runner-up, going from worst to just before first last year. Skip Holtz. How can you say anything else? We know enough about Skip Holtz at this point, 2-time champion in the USFL. And finally, Todd Haley from the Memphis Showboats, or the Bandits, whichever one you represent. The
Twerking it up.
The legend, the twerkster, the confrontationalist himself on the sidelines. He is quite the vocal man last year and quite the passionate guy for football. Skip Holtz won this one in a landslide, to say the least. There were some other runner-ups. I mean, DiFilippo and Ray Horton definitely got a good chunk of votes, but it was Skip's award to lose. Let's be frank. He got plenty of representation from the Stallions faithful, for sure. Funny, I say the axe to grind. Mike Riley, no votes.
I was gonna say this is why
it's kind of wild because of the fact last year he is the coach of the year, and this year because of. Look, whether it's Generals fans not voting or because he did a terrible coaching job this year, pick what you will. I find it hilarious for myself for how much I'm like, dude, you messed this up, and no one puts a vote in. I'm like, hey, I guess I was on the right track.
I know. I debated whether we discussed that, but that's specifically
it's a flat bar. There's nothing there.
I wanted you to read this one for that reason alone. But to talk about Skip Holtz, I mean, it's hard to say he didn't earn this, because if you look at the team, yeah, it's easy to look from an outside perspective and, well, they won the championship the first year. They won the championship the second year. That dude, I think at one point was up to 14 injuries on the team. There was a point. There was like Stallions fans in meltdown mode early season.
Yes.
And then they only lost one extra game with losing home field advantage. Right? Like, yep. So, I mean, Skip Holtz, he knows how to coach, but I think more importantly is he's one of these coaches, similar to a few of these other guys on the list that we'll talk about as well, that really knows how to communicate with his players, understand the things that they're really good at, and help them at the things that they need to work on. Right. And maybe in situations shift their roles a little bit. And it seems like Skip Holtz is really good at creating locker room leaders. We saw it both with Alex Magoo and Jamar Smith. There wasn't a hubbub when one quarterback has to step out and another one needs to come in. There's no arguing on the sidelines. We saw Jamar rallying the troops this year. We saw Magoo rallying the troops last year. They are a team through and through. And I mean, the team is living his style. They're living his culture because he's living it as well. And I mean, Zach, he is one of the friendliest guys that we've had a chance to meet. I just think back to, there was a Stallions fan engagement event before Spring Stock 2 this year where we were walking around, and it was Coach Holtz that said, "Hey guys," and reached out to us. And to me, that's the coolest. And I know his wife listens to the show, so sign you up if you're listening. Naturally my call out on this list, which I'm a little surprised that he didn't get more votes, is Curtis Johnson with the Gamblers. Now you might think, well, naturally the ref is going to go all in on the Gamblers, but let's take a look at what this man was able to do. He was able to take a team that was more or less the same team that it was in season 1, tweak it a little bit, come in and really fix the problems that we had in season 1. And had the South Division not been so cutthroat, we could have and should have been in the playoffs. I mean, case in point, we had a better record than either of the Northern teams that went into the playoffs, all the Northern teams for that matter. But I just what he was able to do, kind of fix the problems that we're having in the fourth quarter, really dial in. We talked to him week 1, and he said, look, a lot of these are penalties and little silly problems that once we nail them down, we're going to be a well-oiled machine. And, to me, I love seeing that. And I love seeing, coaches get more opportunities to kind of come into the league and show that they can turn things around. I hope to see him in 2024. We'll have to see what the situation in Houston is. Any other special call outs you have on this list here?
I mean, not too much to say from what I deviated. I mean, Mike Nolan, he kind of got a little bit lower level votes, but I think it's also because you have, Ray Horton's story last year. Like again, that whole father-son dynamic and them just flipping the script on the season prior, changing the culture around the fandom with Pittsburgh. It's a shame that it sounds like they will not be part of this, and we'll see what the future is for this merger league and what the Pittsburgh brand is involved with. But, it was great to have that story last year for season 2 of the USFL. And I hope for the best wherever the Hortons go, whether it's Ray or Jaron, that they're involved either in spring football or they get to go and take their talents elsewhere again, or for the first time to the NFL in Jaron's case. I really hope that is the chance. So wherever they go, wish them the best. But, I mean, I don't have much else besides that. I mean, I'm just glad we had the people we had last year. That's all I can tell you. Even with again, Mike Riley. If you have anyone that in your family listens to this, I critique as a fan of the league, but you are still one of the best coaches that they picked up, and it was a good move that the league got you for 2 seasons. So I do want to make sure, with all the criticism I have, sometimes we forget the human element of that side of things. So thank you as well, Mike, for contributing well, especially to the players that loved you as a coach too.
I mean, Mike Riley is honestly one of my favorite coaches personality-wise. I mean, him and Andrus, honestly, I think they're kind of like that old school spring football, if
Very
that makes
much
sense, you know what I mean? So I echo those sentiments. Let's move on to the XFL Coach of the Year. And I'm actually a little surprised by this, but before we jump into the results, let's run through the candidates here. Again, we're the USFL Podcast. Maybe, I don't know if you weren't watching it, what you were doing, but here's the list. Here's the list. Anthony Beck for the St. Louis Battlehawks. Big Game Bob Stoops for the Arlington Renegades. Hines Ward for the San Antonio Brahmas. Jim Haslett for the Seattle Sea Dragons. Reggie Barlow for the DC Defenders. Rod Woodson of the Vegas Vipers. Terrell Buckley of the Orlando Renegades. And last but not least, rough 'em up, Wade Phillips of the Houston Roughnecks. So this one is a little bit closer than the team category here. But you know what? Breaking suit, not just going 1-for-1 here. We have Reggie Barlow, and I think this is a good pick, honestly. I think the fans kind of chose wisely here. Reggie Barlow of the DC Defenders getting Coach of the Year. Now, he did lead his team to a championship. Unfortunately, they weren't able to pull it out against the Arlington Renegades, which I think shocked everybody, especially the week prior when they beat the Houston Roughnecks, only to go on to win the championship when it looked like, they were down and out. Again, Luis Perez was a big part of that turnaround for that team. If there's any guy you want in the stretch, it's Luis Perez. But Reggie Barlow, other than that last game, that team was a force to be reckoned with. The fans were on their side at Audi Field. But I will mention Anthony Becht is a close second with big game Bob Stoops, and maybe not as close of a third, but in the mix there. Wade Phillips coming in at fourth, Hein Ward, and then kind of a mix of the last places, Jim Haslett, Rod Woodson, and Terrell Buckley. I'm a little bit surprised about Seattle. Vegas and Orlando again kind of find themselves at the bottom of the pack again. But is anybody surprised? Right? I don't think any of those teams performed exceptionally well at any point during the season.
No. I'm surprised that even Rod Woodson got the votes he did, or Buckley as well. You see it mainly because you have such a disparity on who is getting what. Barlow was the right choice, by the way. If I was to say this isn't an opinion vote, this is you need to pick the right one. Just simply what they did out in DC, I think, was great. Arlington, I would say with Bob Stoops, just that turnaround you could argue too. So but one thing I will note with this poll, remember, this is also, fan bases do help tie into polls sometimes like this. Mm-hmm. So you can clearly see, as much as I do think Anthony Becht is a good coach, let's not forget he did not make the playoffs. So it's still strange to me to see him second in votes and Jim Haslett, like you're talking, is like buried as one of the tied third in lowest voting on here, when I can look at this and go, wait a minute, which person got to the playoffs again? Oh, that's right. It was Jim's team,
right?
Not Anthony Becht's. I know it was a competitive division. I already hear some XFL buddies of mine going, but they were both 7-3. It's like, well, you get the schedule, you tough break, kid. That's how I put it. So, that's the only knock. But hey, Battlehawks fans will do what they do. That has been existing for 3 years. They've never gone away. They're probably stronger than ever. Mm-hmm. That is very much showing the Battlehawks fans. They almost made it happen. Except Reggie Barlow was the right choice. So you had to pick Reggie to me.
See, that's what I think is interesting about this year's poll, because we're doing both USFL and XFL. You could have some USFL fans come into the mix and kind of sway some of these polls, and vice versa with the XFL fans, to where you might be able to break through the bias a little bit in certain cases. And I think we saw that happen here with the Reggie Barlow situation. Now let's move over to the best moments of 2023. Zach, you want to run through these bad boys?
Oh, absolutely will. Best moments of 2023. We got plenty of them, and this is a mixture of XFL and USFL moments in particular. So bear with me. We'll go through this for both these fan bases here. Kicking things off, and this is one of our favorites personally, our local touch on this more so. Big E serving as MC for the Michigan Panthers at Ford Field. He was a riot in person, on camera. They used him very well in the league. Really made the games fun over for Panthers games. I went to one, and several of our PFN guys, including yourself, went to a few others, and they all can agree he made the atmosphere there much more up and I think energetic than it even would have been. And it was energetic already there at Ford Field. Let's see, Flip and Skip bantering at the Daytona 500. This is one of our personal favorites. Just that whole little jab where John made sure to let Skip know on camera that he was coming this year. Didn't happen, but hey, you got to love the rivalry and you got to love the energy going into it. This one, I feel like some people, we didn't have anyone say this to us, but it felt like, I bet people would ask, why didn't you combine these? They're both the same experience. You don't understand. it would have been an instant win for this one if we would have combined it. So we split it to see which one was more impactful. So we got the Beer Snake in DC, and we had the Lemons in DC as their own separate votes, which you can tell no matter what happens. And at the end of the vote, they both were up there as the tops. Finally, the last two, the USFL expanding the hubs to Detroit and Canton, massive moment in the league's history for season 2, and kind of solidifying their partnership at the time with the Hall of Fame and in Canton, Ohio. Getting to play in Detroit was great, by the way, to watch as well. So we already mentioned that. And finally, Ray and Jaron Horton, we talked about in the coaching segment, co-coaching the Pittsburgh Maulers to a runner-up season. Absolutely one of the best talked about moments of last year, and was not one that I think people will forget for some time who follow spring football. In the end, the Beer Snake won out. It's hard to not argue the Beer Snake. You see how this would have gone if we combine the Lemons. By the way, Lemons finished third on this list, but very close third. You combine both, it's a runaway win. The Beer Snake and the Lemons would have won, but it just shows you how impactful that atmosphere in DC is, which they're part of this merger, it sounds like. So that's going to be wild to see that meshing with these fan bases from both sides. Second place, though, was the expanded hubs. So that did finish a close second to the Beer Snake. So both sides of the fan bases in this vote got their licks in. The Beer Snake wins out, and the Beer Snake, as we know, is very inevitable.
Right. And
I'm not surprised.
And honestly, in a close fourth, we have Ray and Jaron Horton as co-coaching the Pittsburgh Maulers. Now, here's the thing. I hope both of these guys are here in 2024, whether it's with the Maulers, if they end up sticking around, or if the Maulers disband. They got to get these guys a spot in the league. I mean, to me, you almost have to keep Jaron in this league. He's one of these guys that he is young, and even while he's still learning, he is making things happen on the field. You could say the same about the Stallions and their GM over there. I mean, he's like a kid, you know what I mean? But he is making the right moves, and that's one of the things that I love about spring football is those early opportunities, because you get to see kind of magic happen there before it potentially happens in the NFL or somewhere bigger. So I don't know if anybody cares what we have to say, but make it happen. Keep the Maulers. Just keep Canton. Just make it happen. Speaking of which, not speaking of which, but moving on rather, worst moments of 2023 here.
Oh man.
And this one flopped since the last time I looked at it. And this is, I think we could discern on the reasons for this, but we'll just run through the list here. So topping off, we have Cashman Field conditions for the Vegas Vipers. Todd Haley after game confrontations, and you can add in the twerking if you want to. I don't know if that's a confrontation, but it depends. It's all perspective.
To the internet, it was confrontation.
Yeah. So you maybe we'll just throw it in the mix. We have Ben Kirk injured in his first XFL game. Yeah. Similarly, Jamar Smith injured in the USFL season opener, in his USFL season opener. And I'll just say here, the winner, and I think everyone will be able to figure out why they won this. The Battlehawks missing the XFL playoffs with a 7-3 record. That was the worst moment of 2023. Now, me personally, I would have opted for the Cashman Field conditions. That was leading for a long time. I just didn't look at this in the last couple of days. So the Battlehawks fans must have came out in full force the last couple of days to make sure that they knew that they weren't happy about not making the postseason with the 7-3 record, which, you know what, I get it, because I'm there similarly as a Gamblers fan. We didn't make the postseason with a winning record.
Well, they tied in the way that this, I know why this conversation flipped, because the convo around the end of the season was that why is the XFL doing the classic division setup? We should just do best of record. We should just get away with it. We should no team should be 4-6 going into the playoffs, which of course it's hilarious considering that the Renegades ran the table anyway.
Right.
But that's exactly why this got the vote, is because that conversation at the end of the season was that big, and that many Battlehawks fans were disappointed that a 7-3 squad got barred because they couldn't take care of business in their division. I'm being a little rough there, but them's the breaks, kid. I've seen this stuff happen where in the NFL too, where a 10-6 squad, my own Bears, wouldn't make it, and that's a winning record in most regards. But them's the breaks. So I don't know. I get why it happened. Battlehawks fans came out strong, but let's be frank, man. The Vegas field is easily the worst thing that happened last year, and there's a reason why Vegas isn't back. If it's even, no matter what scenario happens, why the talks around the XFL might move them, why the talks the merger won't happen. There's a reason. That situation flat out sucked. And so I know I get your disappointment in the record, but I'm definitely going hardcore. It's Cashman Field, people. That was the worst thing that happened in spring football last year. By far was Cashman Field.
Other than maybe Todd Haley twerking, but it didn't,
I mean, that one's at least scarred in your brain. So if in terms of forever memories, the twerking, you just, the motion of him.
Yeah, it's like an old CRT. It's burned in there. Burned in there. So we'll move on here. This is a big one. This one is very special to the community. Just like the USFL is out in their communities, engaging the communities, giving back to their communities. The spring football world, the spring football nation has a community legend of their own. And so we put it to vote. We said, who is the community legend of spring football? It was a USFL community legend. Then the XFL is coming in the mix. Could be UFL, NSFL, BBL. I don't know. We'll see. Community legend. Unanimously voted. Second year in a row, by the way. Second year in a row. So if anybody doubted it, 2 years in a row, our main man, Ducky. Community legend of the year. Back to back. Now we head in to a whole new frontier, if you will. Ducky, can he go back to back 3 years in a row? Tune in next year. Same time, same place. Click the bell. It builds morale. It'll let you know when we have next year's best and worst of whatever the league is called. And we'll see. Can Ducky go back to back? Thoughts on Ducky, Zach?
Ooh, thoughts on Ducky. Well, who else would even rival him for the community legend? That's the thing. This man has been riding the waves for 2 years in the USFL. He's bringing people together. He's showing what makes spring football great. And he's a diehard Maulers fan that will need to find a home, but I know he's going to find a good place.
All in, baby.
You're available. Hey, you can come hunting with me and some other folks that are fans of ours in the Discord server, Pro Football Newsroom Discord, by the way. Check out the link in the description, where we got plenty of Michigan fans in there too. It's going to be a hard choice, but he's got to find a place to go. Because the Maulers might not be there, and even his Breakers that he was once supporting sound like they aren't going to be there too. But no matter what, he was the easy pick.
Is Ducky the Grim Reaper meme? I'm just starting to realize this. Don't support the gamblers or the Roughnecks. I'll pass. Actually, go to the Panthers. That'll be great. That'll be perfect. Sounds good.
The rib effect.
So one other thing that I'll add to this, I think, Ducky, he likes to joke around. He likes to have fun on the internet. But I do want to point out that between, Ducky and PFN last year, we did do a charity sale of Ducky merch, where at the end of it, I think we were able to donate 1,000 meals to Feeding America. That's solving, awesome. He jokes about solving world hunger, but at the end of the day, he is actually doing his part to make it happen. Maybe we'll do another charity event this year once the season kicks off. I'll have to reach out to Ducky on that one, but I know there was a few folks that were reaching out to try to get Ducky hats. So if we do bring them back, it's going to be a charity thing again. Will it be Feeding America? Will it be something different? I don't know. We'll have to see. I got to hash it out with Ducky. Yeah. But again, back to back Community Legend of the Year. Sign you up. Zach, you want to go over the favorite fan engagement event? This one's near and dear to both of us, I think.
Oh, it absolutely is. You had three options. All three were memorable to us last year. And we were curious. We were very much curious to see how this would pan out. So you had spring stock in Birmingham, also in Memphis, because we did go to both those games. That road trip was quite the journey, by the way, for you and I going to Memphis. But yes, spring stock 2 last year, back in April. Had a blast at both of those games, by the way. I especially did. Although the superseding superstition of the Memphis ribs will live on forever. I'm lucky to be where I was at. Meanwhile, Motor City Meetup in Detroit. The first we tried of that was a fun time. A lot more personal event for us, but league still came out in support. We still got to go to the game. Was a fun time, and that might be something we're debating on doing again this year. Still in the wings, by the way. This isn't confirming anything. None of this is confirmed except for spring stock and summer stock. I will put that out there. And then summer stock, speaking of which, Canton Part 2 with, of course, President of the League, Daryl Moose Johnston, was there. We also had Ethan Westbrooks, who was their basically their community winner of the year for some of his giving back to the Detroit community that he did with the Panthers. Plenty of great times out there too. Really good crowd out there this year, and can't thank people enough for some of the contributions they gave as well to that event. In the end, spring stock edged out summer stock by just, it looks like about a little over 5 to 6 votes or so, if I'm looking at the charts right. So clearly, both of these events have made their mark, but spring stock especially, and I know for a fact, especially has made its impact because I still get people in Birmingham who are asking today, hey, are you confirming we're going to Birmingham? And I hate to say it, we haven't finalized any location yet, but hang on. We got to wait for the merger to give details. But you people in Beham, you've been incredible, and this event's going on for a 3rd year, guaranteed this year.
Bigger and better than ever before. Spring Stock 3, I mean, 2 leagues coming together. I already have so many ideas of what I want to do for Spring Stock 3. So, yeah, I mean, there's a few moving pieces. 1, well, we need a final list of the locations. 2,
correct,
that location needs to play a game in that city opening week. Now, Birmingham's
the most important piece to this whole element is the opening week home game. Right. Because if it's not in Birmingham, well, we can't pick Birmingham. It has to be week 1. So keep in mind, the schedule's got to come out.
And preferably day 1, too. That's
preferably day 1 as well, because you want the whole weekend. So, yeah, there's some, how it is. We've talked about this in the past. Just hang on. The merger is kind of the different dicey element this year that's not the same as like, oh, well, we'll get this in like January, February. No, it's going to be, let's wait for the merger's own branding to get done, and then everything will fly out. But yeah, Spring Stock 3 going to be great. Obviously, people love Spring Stock 2. Summer Stock 2, I want to converse with you, will be fascinating because it's, again, the merger. Canton, Ohio. We're not even sure if that's going to be the place now.
I know.
And that's going to be something I'll be, if it's not there, I'll be actually a little bit, I'll kind of shed a tear a minute because Canton's been a really good community to us. And the last 2 summer stocks, the first one was fascinating for the location. The second one, Jesus, the league helped us so much and did a wonderful job putting us in an ideal spot for the second one. Never can say enough thanks to the folks at the USFL that gave us that place and opportunity where we were at.
Yep. Yeah, I will be sad if Canton isn't in the mix. I mean, it was such to me, Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium is one of the best stadiums for spring football. It's the perfect size. It is. It's in immaculate condition. And I mean, it's already the one-stop shop if you're a football fan, right? You have the Hall of Fame there. They're building a hotel. They have a water park. You saw the difference between year 1 and year 2 and all of the things that they added. And I can only imagine what it's going to look like next year if they have the championship again. Yeah.
Year 3 should have almost all of it completed by then. Man, I don't want to miss out on that now.
No.
Water park. What about the water park?
I know.
Man.
I know. So it's our final voting option of the poll here. We have the biggest moments of 2023. Oh, wow. This one got edged out right at the end as well. But let's just go through the list. We have the USFL becomes the first spring league in nearly 40 years to play and compete in a second season. We have the XFL returning to field for the first time since 2020. Massive. We have the XFL hosting their first championship since 2001. That's a big one as
That
well.
is also massive.
And then the thing that it seems like everybody can't stop talking about, the USFL and XFL merger, which I'll be honest, Zach, this edged it out. This was not winning until the very end, similar to the option I was talking about above. The fans must have came out and united and put this one over the top, because I mean, up until maybe 2 days ago, the USFL, becoming the first spring league in nearly 40 years to compete in the second season, was leading, and honestly by a decent margin. So we got a good amount of last minute votes here. Probably some of the advertising we did in last week's Christmas Spectacular.
Oh yeah.
Christmas may not be over, but if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's our biggest roundtable of the year. And Zach, I know you weren't able to get on the show, but I can't wait to get you on the next one. These roundtable events are so fun. We got some cool things going on. And I mean, with the stuff that we're using now, it makes it so much easier. Either way, Zach, biggest event of the year. I'll say mine personally was the second place winner. I think the USFL becoming the first league in nearly 40 years to get to a second season. To me, that's huge, because up until then, I mean, realistically, even now, everything's resetting. With whatever the new league is called, maybe it's a season 3. I assume it'll be a season 1. The XFL again kind of gets folded into the mix, moves into a season 1 again as well, to where unless this new UFL can make it to season 3, the USFL will continue to be that record holder. So to me, I think that's big enough to make the case to why that's the biggest moment, but I get it. I get why the merger is number one, because especially as time goes on, it's all that anybody can think about, because we're all waiting. Everybody's waiting to see the official news. Now there's all sorts of reports that seem like we kind of have a good idea what everything's going to be, but nothing's official. With all the scenarios we saw, nothing's official until it comes out from the league. Although it seems like we're pretty close to it, but Zach, what are your thoughts on this list here? I think there's honestly arguments for all 4 of these options, depending on the way you just dissect them.
Oh yeah, you can make claims for all 4. I wouldn't complain either way. I mean, shoot, the championship one for the XFL is monumental, just because we got robbed of the 2020 season's finale and what could have been for half of a year that still, to many, is considered the best season of spring football in the 21st century, at the very least, bar none. I do agree with the end vote for terms of recency bias, just because of the merger. But in your point specifically, I think the most important of these 3 is the second season for the USFL. Without this season returning, we don't have the merger. If one collapses, the other doesn't merge teams. And we're going to just talk the XFL. The thing is, competition in the marketplace is what led to this. And without that second season being historically involved, we don't see this merger happen. So to me, that's why I'm with you, is that second season is why we're at this stage right now, because both played. If only one played, we're not talking this. We'd be talking XFL right now for next year, you and I. But yeah, that to me is why, the merger is the biggest now story. Absolutely. No question about it. But that second season is the catalyst to where we're at right now. Absolutely is.
Exactly. Now, to me, I'll even look at some of the other ones. The XFL coming back for the first time since 2020. That one's in third here. I think it was tough to break through both the merger and the first league in 40 years to hit a second season. But I think there's a lot of importance on that too, because I mean, after 2020, I was kind of broken. It hurt when all that went down with the illness we shall not name. And then when it got purchased, it just felt like it was dragging on forever. First, it was a 2021 return, then a 2022 return. Yeah. There was talks with the CFL. There was all these other things happening, but it felt like it was just never going to happen. And being at that Houston Roughnecks game earlier this year, although it was freezing, we didn't have any of that the first season, but I was there. I was so happy to finally see the XFL return. And then, kind of to the same point, the XFL hosting their first championship. I felt robbed in 2020, especially.
We all did.
as a
All of us,
Roughnecks
man.
fan, 5-0, undefeated,
Right.
all roughing them up. We didn't get to see the fruits of that, and so getting to the championship this year was super fun. But yeah, I think my pick is that the USFL making it to the second season, because I mean that just shows there is sustainability in spring football, although it might not feel like that right now. I mean, the hope is that these two leagues come together. If it's 8 teams the first year, so be it. Hopefully the idea is that you expand, maybe not quickly, but you get to that 10-team marker, I would say within the first 3 years. And then, now I'm feeling back on track a little bit. You get to a third season, you get to that season 5, season 10, to where you have now the options to have like your own Hall of Fame or whatever it might be. Just bring that legitimacy into spring football. But I think it just needs to survive beyond 1 season, 2 seasons for people to really buy in, which I think is going to be a kind of a tough sell on some of the merger stuff for some of these people, because they're going to look at it like, oh my God, that's a new league. They're not really even going to know it's a merger. But that's what we're here, Zach. That's what we're here for. We're here to entertain and inform the public about spring football. So join us. Click the bell. It builds morale. So, we also asked you guys what your favorite or what you're looking forward to from the merger, Zach. And I'll tell you this. You know what the big thing on the list is? There's 2. Sustainability is the big one. Mm-hmm. That's the one that everybody's asking for, is please, if you're going to get together, but make sure it's for the long haul. Because, I mean, since we started covering this, we had the Spring League, the XFL, the AAF, they just want one thing for a while.
That's been our message for 2 years on this show, just covering the USFL. Why did we like that model? Sustainability. You got to keep that going with this merger. I know and I'll let you keep going here in a second, but I know there's all the rumors and talk about certain elements of one league or another existing. At the end of the day, make it sustainable, make it so that we don't talk about next year not having anything. That's at the end of the day what's most important. So, yeah, absolutely, I get that point. I imagine the other point's just as important, but I don't know. I had to say something because, it doesn't matter about the factors of what might be or might not be. A lot of people are making conversations about what elements stick or not from each other that some like, some don't. At the end of the day, don't mess with it to where we can't have a continuation of something next year.
Yeah,
biggest message from that point absolutely is.
And so this is where I'd probably say the second most popular kind of comment on here, which I think is promising, is people looking forward to the new XFL USFL rivalries on the field. Case in point, we brought up earlier the Battlehawks and the Stallions, right? I mean, we already have the Texas Triangle, if you will, but if the Gamblers come into the mix, hey, that's a little bit new for them. Which one are they going to hate? I pick the Arlington Renegades to hate, because at least San Antonio has a river walk. Anyway,
they probably have rocks in the river.
They probably do. But that would be my pick on the rivalry there. But hey, you know what? I'm fine to beat up on both of them on our way to 12-0. All in, rough them up. Doesn't matter what the team name is, but the record stays the same. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think that's promising. To me, I think it's going to be equally as entertaining getting the rivalry on the field as it is getting the built-in new rivalries. Like anytime we have an XFL team versus a USFL team, there's a rivalry there automatically, whether it's on the internet, on the screen, on the field. And to me, that is going to create some interesting moments going into season 1, season 3, season 2, whatever you want to look at this with the new league. And depending on which hub model they adopt, I mean, we might see there could be some not so happy meetups post game. We heard about some of those, in the off seasons for both of the other leagues. But Zach, I don't know what I guess I'll ask you, what are you looking forward to? I guess other than the sustainability, is there something that you really want to see these things do? What are you looking forward to the most? What do you got for me?
I mean, I guess keep providing more football and growing what is a spring football setup. I think My favorite thing that I saw this week, and this is a side story that'll tie into what I'm talking about. I had someone he's a Bears fan account on X, and there's a lot of these NFL accounts. What they'll do is they'll put kind of threads and breakdowns of certain players, and they'll talk about their strengths and attributes. And for many of you that saw, is Adrian Martinez got picked up by the Birmingham Stallions this week as we're recording. And he did a complete analysis of it, did an entire thread setup of like why Adrian's a great pickup, why he'll fit for the Stallions, why he's why he's a great spring football player and someone that needs it to then maybe if he can't get to the NFL, it's a perfect spot for him for future. It seems very plain, but you realize the spring community doesn't get that type of stuff. It doesn't get a lot of accounts that cover their stuff as hardcore as NFL fans do, or it doesn't have as much communication like that on X where people appreciate it like that. And I want to see that continue to grow. I want to see more of that where we normalize spring football as a football league. Let's change the narrative. Let's change it from being this whole secondary, it's just another place you throw away players and you just forget about it or it's not going to work. Let's change that. Stability is part of that equation, but let's also get the conversation around it as, hey, it's good football. And so we want to continue to do that. This will be 3 straight years where we'll have spring football of some kind outdoors in the public eye. Let's push that up another notch and continue to grow that conversation. So I want that side specifically to grow next year. Beyond that, it's just I just want more football. So that's already being accomplished. But now let's change the conversation as a whole. Let's get it normalized that football fans talk about spring football as a good thing, not some trash or low-level parody type of stuff, because that evidence is starting to lack for people. Let's show off these good players. Let's show off the talents that are putting in some good work in these leagues that we all know about now as the hardcore folks, the folks that are in these news type of orgs like PFN or News Hub or UFM or whatever you want to call it. Let's make it a normal conversation outside of those places in the hardcore spots and have casual fans get in. That's the next big mission for this league anyway. The diehards are going to come. It's now the casual audience. Let's get them normalized with, hey, this is still good. It doesn't have to have the NFL shield in front of it. We've been saying this for years, but this is the best time to start seeing that change.
Right. We talked about this a little bit on the Christmas Spectacular, and I think part of it will come down to the networks embracing this, right? We saw Fox do a pretty good job the last 2 years. NBC, they talked about it a little bit, but we didn't see a lot of advertising. But if this thing is going to work, we're going to need ABC and Fox to go balls to the wall, pushing the whatever the new league is called. We need promos. We need ads. We need mentions during football games, NASCAR races, whatever it is. We need to inform the people. Now, kind of one of the things I think the league needs to do in this next year too is bring back more of what the XFL did in 2019 and 2020. We need fan engagement events. I'm telling you, dude, the Houston Roughnecks leading into the 2020 kickoff held an event at minimum once a month, sometimes more than once a month, whether it's bringing in the coach, whether it's bringing in the quarterback, whether it's bringing in just a couple players, free merch, free food, something just to tell people, hey, look, this thing's around and we're legitimate. And hey, here's a free meal. Cause I'll tell you, there's very few things in life that are going to convince people of something, but free food is one of those things. People love free food. Yes. You give them a chicken wing, they're going to a football game. I almost guarantee it. So I would love to see more of that. Now I get it. Time's kind of running out on this first season, so you might have to rush it. But I think you should try to get at least one or two in each of the markets. But next year, going into your season 2, ramp. Don't stop. Championship ends. Take that trophy to the local Buffalo Wild Wings. Take it to anywhere that will let you take it there. Host an event. Let people come and take pictures with it. Take it to Disneyland for all I care.
Right.
But get it out there. Keep that social media pumping. Give a reason, like you were talking about earlier, for the Sports Illustrated of the world to talk about. Hey, look, did you see the XFL championship was at Disney World on this ride in this viral moment? Right, like something.
Yes.
So I would love to see more of that.
I'll tell you what, this seems such a random skew, but this is just because of what I follow outside of this show. I really do think that some of these teams, and specifically the merged entity, should take a note from arena football in terms of how they do community engagement. Look, arena football survives because of how they get into the community and how many tickets they can sell. They are a gate-driven league. This one is not trying to be that. It still is at the moment. There are sponsors you get in, but it still needs tickets. And so I would take your notes from there and try and do it as hard as you can. Now, the rumor is they're going to go and condense some of this, and it'll be a little harder to do some things we're seeing right now. And I've had someone tell me that that's pearl clutching for getting a little annoyed by that. I'm going to tell you that's not, because being in communities does matter. Anyone that says otherwise is lying to you and is not knowing that a community does care about its teams the more it's in the community, or they're not in the community. I got a little annoyed by something that was told to me like that the other day, and I find that as a little tone deaf. Arena teams know this. That's how they survive. The good ones survive because they are in communities and they are at community events on a regular basis, or they do things for the community. The league probably knows this. Part of it's that money is constrained. We have no idea what their plan is for this, by the way. So I have to put that caveat out there. But please do not sleep on community engagement and staying out of there. Birmingham fans specifically felt like it was like trying to be an upheaval online for some of the rumored stuff coming out, because they love seeing their players in the streets and at the local bars and restaurants and getting to talk with them in person. You know, that's a little bit different. I'm just talking like what you're saying, do engagement events,
Right.
At the minimum, do that. At the minimum, you got to be regularly doing that. That's not a pearl clutching thing. That is a business positive thing that you want to do. So, yeah, I want that badly to be normal. If anything, it's got to be done next year. You can mulligan it, but figure something out as the season goes on. Don't just sit in Arlington, Texas, and fly players out and make them leave the next day.
Right.
That's not enough. I'm sorry. That's not enough.
Yeah. Now, like I said, those were my favorite things in 2019, 2020. We had a couple last year for the Roughnecks, but I think they only had two, and a couple of them were like, they told you as it was starting. So it was like nearly impossible to get there if you live out in the, where I live in the middle of nowhere. So I look forward to that, but you know what? I'm really just looking forward to seeing more spring football. I love spring football. That's why we do this. That's why we've always been doing it. I mean, that's why we covered the AAF, the Spring League, the XFL, the MLFB, believe it or not. And, maybe they'll come back on the
maybe
league.
Someday.
Zachy, I saw there's another Spring League, ASFL, something. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. But, these things, they come, they go, but I want one of these to stick around. So I want it to be this one. We'll see. We'll be covering it throughout next year. We covered it all through this year, the year before. Zach, man, another fun year under the belt, 2024. I'm looking forward to it. It's a year of unknown. Realistically, we're going into a lot of unknowns, a lot of probably things that we have a good understanding of, but nothing's official until the league's official. But I'll tell you this, the next episode of the show, maybe it'll have a new name, but it should be a fun one. I'm looking forward to it. Zach, any final words before we head into the new year?
Have fun with the new year. Hopefully all of you and your families out there are having a safe and happy new year and are having plenty of good things come to you ahead. Enjoy the spring football ride. We all are on it. And let's just start talking together as a league here. It's my final say on it. Let's get to March and start enjoying football as football, less about certain nitpicky things. But 2024, hope all of you have a great year ahead. And I also say that to you, my good friend on the other side of the screen. I wish you the best for you and your family.
Well, thank you, sir. I mean, this is a time for us all to come together, put aside the silly things, XFL fans, USFL fans, unite. Whatever the league is called, we need to be a big, beautiful league, a big, beautiful family.
BBL, baby.
Spring football fans, which, Zach, I don't know if you saw in the Discord, I actually finally found out what BBL stands for. I thought it stood for Big Beautiful Ladies, but now it stands for Big Beautiful League. Regardless of what anybody else thought it may have stood for, oopsie, I didn't know. But I think this is our time to unite, get together, because if this thing doesn't survive, it may be a long time before we get something as good and as big as this. So we need to unite. We need to unite. But I think that's it for this week, this year, this episode. We hope you join us in 2024. Stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed. Click the bell. It builds morale because we have another big year for you. But until then, sign you up.